Welcome to the Baseball Together podcast, baseball family. For those of you new to the show, we are here to raise money for the nonprofit organization called UP, whose mission is to give disadvantaged young ball players the equipment they need to play the game we all love. We also want to unite communities by improving or rebuilding baseball facilities in areas suffering economic or environmental hardship. At this time, you can support by purchasing t-shirts and other baseball-related apparel and accessories from 9plusus.com. 10% of all sales go directly to the cause. Again, that's 9plusus.com. That's the number 9, PLUSUS.com. 9plusus.com. We hope you enjoy this episode of the Baseball Together podcast, brought to you by 9plusus. Welcome to episode 3 of the Baseball Together podcast, baseball family. I am Brad, and I am joined again by Brig.
What up, family?
We're coming to you today. We have current events to get into. We have other stuff. We're going to talk about Commissioner Rob Manfred today. We have some thoughts that we're going to share about him. But let's get going. Let's get going with these current events.
Okay.
So, Brig, did you see this fight last week? There was a Colorado Youth League. It wasn't Little League, but it was a youth league.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it looked like there was a call that somebody didn't like, and there was a full-on brawl.
Yeah.
On the field. I don't know what leads to this. I don't know what leads people to think this is okay.
No.
But what do you think about this?
Well, so the umpire, it all really got started with chirping from the parents, and then the umpire warns the entire field. He warns the coaches on both sides. He warns the parents on both sides. And once he issued the warning, that's when things escalated and got out of hand. Now, the kicker here is that the umpire was 13.
Yeah, that's really the big
13
thing.
years old.
These are just kids umpiring these games.
Right.
And I've been in a situation, like I said before, I coached. It wasn't a little league team. It was just a youth league in Utah. And same thing. There was 13-year-old kids umpiring these games, and we were in a close game. And there was a big play at the plate, and we went and. I'll be honest with you, it was a discussion, but I was excited. I wasn't yelling. I may have raised my voice.
Sure.
But I think that kind of escalated things with the other team, because we were the best team in the league. I'll be honest with you, and this team was towards the bottom, and this was a close game. They ended up beating us, but their fans throughout this game were not good. And I think that's really what got me so riled up about the whole thing, was that this would have been the winning run, and we would have had a chance to get out of there, just be done.
Yeah.
But the thing that really riled me up about this was that their fans were not being good. They weren't being good sports. We had kids who sometimes would swing at bad pitches just because they're 11, 12-year-old kids. They're going to swing at bad pitches.
Sure. Right.
And we would hear from the other stands, we hear good swing, instead of saying good pitch, encouraging their kids, they were sarcastically, they were jeering our kids, mocking our kids, and that was really the issue that I had. And even at that point, I don't feel like this is okay. And if it's going to get to the point where parents are going to fight, I mean, do you just not have parents come to games anymore?
Well, you can't do that.
Yeah,
that's never going to be the right answer. But I think one of the quotes from this 13-year-old umpire is that, he said, I shouldn't have to tell a grown man how to behave around little kids.
Right.
And I think that's really interesting because, it was profanity. The reason the kid issued the warning, the umpire rather, was because of profanity coming from all around, I think. Anyway, so I think the initial, like I go to games, I go to minor league games or whatever, and I'll sit next to a group of college kids or, somebody who's feeling 10 feet tall and bulletproof, especially by about the 6th inning. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they start throwing out all this profanity. And look, I'm not afraid of profanity. I don't even.
Right.
It's like whatever. I don't like. I was in the Army for a long time. Occupational hazard, right? Like I'm
Right.
no stranger. But there's a time and a place, and the ballpark isn't the place, especially when there are kids around. So time and time again, I've had to say something to people where I'm like, "Hey, man, look, we got kids around here," and so most people are pretty self-aware. I don't, you don't run into it too often, but it does happen.
Right. Yeah, and I just think it's unfortunate these kids. It's 7-year-old teams. These kids were 7. Get it together. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous what happens at these kids games sometimes.
Yeah, there's no place for it. It kind of makes me think. I wonder what the deeper story is. Like, have these two teams met multiple times, and have the parents and players been at each other? Especially the parents, right? Have they been at each other in the past? There's got to be more to this story than just somebody got set off.
Yeah, and I would think with 7-year-olds especially, it has to be that something happened with the parents, because I don't think 7-year-old kids are going to be going at each other.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, it was just the parents. But, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, anyways. In a little bit lighter story, the Tampa Bay Rays have been toiling around in the hapless, I don't know if hapless is the word, let's call it a trash hole, a Tropicana field.
Most people agree with that.
You've seen the Trop, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been in it, but I've driven past it.
Yeah.
Even on the outside, it doesn't look good.
Right.
So what they're doing is, I think this is possibly like part of a leverage play to get a new stadium, but they're going to quote unquote explore playing half their home schedule in Montreal.
Well, they've already been approved. Major League Baseball said it's okay.
Yeah. They've been approved to explore it.
Right.
To see how it's going to work out. I think this is great for a number of reasons. Like I said, leverage to get a new stadium, to get out of St. Petersburg. And ultimately, I think what they should do with that team, just move into Montreal.
No, I just think that's one of their fallback plans. Like, obviously they need a new facility, but I think you're right. I think they would love to be in Montreal full time. Yeah,
they really should be. I mean, I feel like there was a good fan base up there before. There still is. There's a want for football. There's a want for baseball up there.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is one in the Tampa Bay area, because
their stadium is empty. No, until the Yankees show up. Yeah.
I don't think they even drew in the playoffs.
Definitely not sellout crowds. The Cubs played yesterday at like noon or something like that. It was like a day game, and it was a sellout crowd.
Yeah. The Cubs have always sold out during the day. It's just Cub tradition.
But it's a work week, right? So even then, and kids are at the stadium, like they're getting pulled out of school. I guess there's no school right now, but it's not uncommon to see parents pull their kids out of school in these bigger markets just to go to a day game, just because they got an opportunity to go. They're not doing that in St. Pete.
And high schoolers play hooky to go.
Of course.
To go to games, because Ferris Bueller told us that.
So. Yeah, that's right. Well, he was right.
He knows how. But I think the biggest thing with all of this is we need the Expos back in the league, because we need the best hat in the history of Major League Baseball with the Montreal Expos hat. I mean, it's
fantastic.
It really is. With the different panels, it's just a perfect hat.
Yeah, I absolutely love the design. But would they still be called the Expos? Or are they going to go back to that? Yeah.
I think they would, because, for example, in the NBA, the Seattle Supersonics, they got moved to Oklahoma City, right?
Right.
But any team that goes back to Seattle, because that name is still in Seattle, any team that goes back to Seattle is going to keep that name. So I think if they go back to Montreal, they'd change their name back to the Expos.
Interesting.
So
okay.
I think that's how they
cool.
I think it's how it works.
Okay, so I got a question for you. Another thing came up yesterday about Manny Machado.
Yes.
Here's the situation. He argued a call. It was a called strike with the home plate umpire. And argue is probably a light way to address this. It got out of control pretty quickly. Anyway, he bumped chests with the home plate umpire. String of what looked like profanity. I don't know if I could say for sure, but it didn't look pleasant. And he ended up throwing his helmet. And then after his manager pulled him aside and took over the conversation, he hurled his bat at the backstop.
Right.
And so what's happened now is that he's been suspended, and the Umpires Association has issued a statement that equates his actions with workplace violence and unacceptable behavior, and making an example of him and things like that. And we'll have the link to the article in the show notes. But what are your thoughts, Brad? What do you think about that?
I think the umpires are blowing this out of proportion, to be completely honest, because he did throw his bat, but there was nobody around where he threw it, and bats are flying all over the place in baseball anyway. And I feel like when there are arguments going on, I feel like as far as escalation and the heat of that argument, the way that Machado was arguing with him, it was kind of par for the course. I mean, I know he threw his bat and he threw his helmet and everything, but I mean, you ever watch Lou Piniella go off on an umpire?
Oh, yeah, but Lou wasn't an active player when he went off on umpires like that.
No, he was a manager, but
right.
At the same time, though, I mean, yes, it was a strike, but there had to have been something going on earlier, because I was trying to read Machado's lips as much as I can, because I love to read lips during a good argument. But it looked like he'd said something like all game, right?
Right.
So there's obviously something had been going on there. That was just the outside corner pitch there. That was a strike. I'll say that it was a strike, but there had been something going on with that placement of that pitch that had been driving him and or the Padres crazy all game. That maybe his pitcher hadn't been getting that pitch.
Sure.
So
yeah, I didn't watch the game, so I don't really know all that context. But
yeah, no, I don't feel like guys will just blow up on a called third strike like that. There's got to be things that have led up to it. And I like Machado. I think he's a great player. He's fun to watch. So I'm gonna defend him, but I do think he went a little bit over the top throwing his bat. But I don't think you can equate it to workplace violence.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you.
Okay.
I agree that I don't know that I would call it workplace violence either, but I also believe that, maybe this has been going on for a lot longer than we think, right? Way beyond just this one game, because Manny Machado's a hothead.
Yes.
Right. And it goes way beyond being an emotional player. Like last week we talked about Mad Bomb, and he's an emotional player. And that's fine. But Machado, he's a whole different animal, right? He's chirping constantly. He's got a bad attitude a lot of times, especially back a few years ago when he was playing with the Orioles, and he just was it seems like he was in the middle of a fight all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that the MLB Umpires Association or Union or whatever they're called are taking the opportunity to finally go after this guy, because I agree with you. He's a great player. He's fun to watch. He draws a crowd. All of that is good for baseball, right? And he's a phenomenal athlete, but his attitude is just toxic. So I just can't, I don't know. I can't defend him. I don't know that I would go so far as to say workplace violence, but I'm not on his side.
Yeah. And I think
the suspension should stand.
Oh yeah, he should definitely be suspended. And I feel like if you get tossed out of a game for arguing balls and strikes or anything like that, I feel like any ejection should come with a suspension, just because guys take it so willy-nilly. They don't take it seriously.
Right.
They don't take ejection seriously. So there should be an extra consequence, especially in a 162 game season.
Sure.
One extra game, I don't feel like is a big deal. And maybe Bryce Harper would take things a little bit more seriously and not get tossed from games so much. So I don't know.
Maybe he would.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that another day.
We sure will. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a short break. And when we come back, like we said, we're going to be talking about Rob Manfred, sharing some of our thoughts on some of the things that he is doing right now in baseball. Hey, Mike, Catherine, those are some cool t-shirts you guys have.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I got it from 9plusus.com. They have tons of great baseball designs.
Yeah, I wear my 9plusus clothing all the time. My favorite gym tank says diamonds are everyone's best friend. And my go-to shirt for barbecue says a hot dog at the ballpark is better than steak at the Ritz.
Wow, I love that.
Right? Isn't that so cool? Yeah, I also got this snapback from 9plusus. They're really the greatest stuff.
Well, I'm going to have to do some shopping after this batter. What was that site again?
So yeah, it's 9plusus.com. So the number 9, right? 9 players on the field plus us. So 9, the number 9, PLUSUS.com.
Shop 9plusus.com. Apparel for game day and every day.
Welcome back, baseball family. We are going to launch into this week's rundown.
Yeah, let's do a rundown.
Let's do a rundown.
Don't get caught in the rundown.
All right, you ready, Brad?
Ready and waiting.
Question 1, favorite TV show?
How I Met Your Mother.
Nice. Yes.
Yes.
What position would you play in today's MLB environment?
Catcher.
Favorite book of all time?
Harry Potter.
The first one?
All of them.
Oh, which one? You got to pick a favorite between those.
5. Order of the Phoenix.
Okay. Favorite holiday?
4th of July.
The most annoying rule in baseball?
Infield fly. Play the ball. Play the ball.
Play the ball. Do you believe in extraterrestrial life?
Yes, I do.
Favorite hobby? What?
I was going to say, let me get my tinfoil hat.
Yeah. What's your favorite hobby?
Playing video games.
What's your favorite video game?
I am a huge nerd for the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Nice. What would you name your yacht?
Oh, man. I had a name. I actually have one sitting around. I just can't think of it right now. What was it? Shoot. I'm going to get caught. Oh, man. My yacht. Oh, it would be probably just... I'm going to go with JoJo Cornrow for now.
Okay. I figured. Favorite former MLB player?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Favorite current MLB player?
D. Gordon.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I got a lot of them. Oh, geez. Got to pick one. People when they bounce their knee. If you're sitting next to them.
Okay, and the last question. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Which current pitcher would you take yard?
Would I take yard?
Yeah.
Somebody on the Mariners staff. Probably Mike Leake.
Mike Leake.
Oh, I'd hit a bomb off that guy. Not really, but I'd be most likely to.
Yeah. All right, that wraps up this rundown.
All right. No, I couldn't hit a bomb off anybody in the MLB.
Yeah, me neither.
That's tough pitching. Tough pitching.
Remember that part of Rookie of the Year when he stands there, 1 foot in, to his toes in the box.
Oh, yeah.
And he throws a curved ball and he falls over. That's about how I would handle it.
And I'd probably be able to stand in the box, but if they just threw me fastballs, it would be past me before I knew what had happened. And then a curveball, it's like Crash Davis says, exploding sliders. Like
yes,
it would be like at your knees and then on the ground before you knew what happened. They'd probably walk if they threw me curveballs because I wouldn't swing at any of them.
Right.
Because I wouldn't know what to do with it. But.
One of these days, I'll tell you the story about the first time I ever saw a curveball. We'll wait for that another day.
I bet I know what happened.
Yeah, I'll bet you do.
Your knees buckled and you wet your pants.
Yes, that is part of the story. There was crying, like I was 24, it's great. No. Oh man. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Commish. Okay.
Yeah, let's get into the Commish. I have some thoughts to share on the Commish.
Yeah, me too. So the biggest thing, let's just umbrella this right now, is we need to talk about his seemingly unending efforts to change the game.
Yeah.
And everybody has their opinion on these things, but we're going to get into just a couple of the specifics. So let's just take on pace of play right now, Brad. What are your thoughts on pace of play and what the Commish is trying to do to address that issue?
So for me, Yes, pace of play has always kind of been a little bit of an issue in baseball. I understand that for most people. For me, it's fine. I like it. You've talked before about kind of the picnicky atmosphere of baseball because pitch, wait a little bit, pitch, I enjoy that as well. I understand that some people, it's a little bit slow for them. It's too slow. But with what he's doing as far as suggesting a pitch clock, I think is ridiculous because you can't tell a pitcher, okay, you've got to throw the ball in 30 seconds, 45 seconds or whatever, because if that clock is behind home plate or in the outfield or wherever it is, and the runner can see it, if it's getting down to 2 seconds, that runner, think of the jump he's going to get. I mean, granted, it'll be nice that guys are still on bases again, but runners would just have a heyday, right?
Yeah.
Is anytime that pitch clock gets low, I mean, as a runner, I'd be like, I'm out, I'm gone,
Sure.
because you know exactly when the pitch is going. And then another one is pitchers face 3 batters or finish the inning because they don't want to have so many pitching changes.
Yeah.
And I understand that as far as cutting down on pitching changes, but I don't feel like you can do that because it completely changes the strategy of a game. It completely changes the way you're playing the game. It completely changes your matchups and things like that. And I know you bring in relievers and say, okay, he's going to get us through the inning. You've got a setup man who's going to get us through the 8th inning. You've got middle relievers who are going to get us through the 7th. But if a guy's stuff just isn't on, I mean, 3 batters, if he comes in with runners on first and second and he has to face 3 batters and can't get anybody out, all of a sudden you could have just given up 5 runs.
Yeah. It's true.
And so, I mean, if that guy comes in and gives up a home run on his first pitch and the manager was like, nope, he doesn't have today, we need to get him out. I feel like they have to have that kind of leeway. You can't just say, well, you got to face 3 batters, because you can dig yourself a hole real fast with that kind of problem.
Yeah. So a couple things. I live in the Carolinas, and we have the South Atlantic League here, where they are piloting the pitch clock. Mm-hmm. And so I'm watching it. When I go to minor league games, we're running the pitch clock, and it's fascinating. So the rule down here, at least, and I think one of the rules they're playing with is that the pitcher has to be set.
Oh, he has to be set.
He just has to be set. Yeah, he doesn't have to throw the ball.
Okay.
He just has to get set. He has to hold the ball and be set, whether that's in the stretch or from the windup. It doesn't matter. But he has to be set and ready to go before the clock ends. And then from there, he can take as much time as he needs. So to your point about stealing bases, I don't think that's necessarily an issue because of that rule.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, and I thought it was going to work kind of like a shot clock, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. But even then, though, I feel like a pitcher can still he can stand set forever.
Yep.
So I don't think it does anything.
Yeah, he could. No, and it's interesting when you talk about the 3 batters minimum kind of thing, or end the inning or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense to me for the same reasons that you've illustrated. I think Joe Madden would literally have an aneurysm.
Yes, he would. He wouldn't know what to do with himself.
That dude rotates pitchers in and out more than anybody I've ever seen.
Or he keeps them in the game, too. He'll send a pitcher out to left field so he can bring him in 3 batters later.
Yeah, it's true, and it's absolutely hilarious. His little card, he would be scribbling all over it. Yeah. By the way, shameless plug for Cubs Way. If you haven't read the book Cubs Way, you should got to go get it.
Do it.
We'll put a link in the show notes. But okay, there's another rule change that's being proposed, and it's actually going to start being piloted next season down here in, I think, the South Atlantic League again. But they're talking about moving the rubber back 2 feet in the playoffs. So the mound rubber would move backward away from the plate 2 feet during the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that?
So I don't think you can do that. 2 feet is a lot. That's a whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we've watched fastball. We've watched the science of timing, of how long it takes a fastball to get to a batter. That would wreak havoc on pitchers. I mean, 100 mile-an-hour fastball becomes, 95 basically at that point?
Maybe slower.
Yeah. I mean, that's 2 feet is really far for a pitcher.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'd be able to get outs. to be honest with you.
So I'm worried about arms, right?
Right.
Like that makes me think that players are going to fatigue their arms further, right? It's already at the end of the season, and we're already straining, especially if you head into a playoff scenario, if you played in the All-Star game or whatever it is. So, the life on those arms during a regular season now becomes a genuine health concern.
Right.
And it's an investment concern for the ballpark or the ball club. And so I don't know. I don't get it, especially when you consider how, home runs are a legitimate concern for me. And I know I'm not alone in that,
right.
But it's funny because the newer fans, the people that are just barely starting to get into baseball and trying to explore fandom, they love home runs. And that's because over the last 10 or 15 years or even 20 years, that's been all we want to talk about, all we want to see. But now it's becoming kind of a shrouded evil, I guess.
It's gotten to the point where it's either strike out or hit a home run, and that's not good.
Right.
That's not good for the game.
No, and especially in the American League. I feel like it's less so in the National League, but in the American League, it's do or die every time you step up to the plate. I wrote an article about it a couple of months ago. You can check it out. We'll put that link to that in the show notes. But for me, a well-executed bunt is way more exciting than a home run, and you're going to end up with more home runs once they push the rubber back a couple of feet. That's my opinion.
And another big thing with pushing the rubber back is it's going to mess with pitchers' curveballs. Anything that breaks, curveballs are going to loop.
Right.
Curveballs are going to loop more because they're going to have to throw it more. I guess like a right-handed pitcher is going to have to throw it more at the batter to get it to break over the plate. And I'll tell you, there's nothing that I loved more as a player than a nice big looping curveball. I played against a kid in our league who the first time you saw it, like the first time he threw it to you, you didn't know what to think. But then the next time he threw it at you, you knew exactly what to think, and you would send it over the fence because the thing was just a looper. And I feel like there's going to be more of that. And I totally agree with you on the arms. And I understand guys are throwing fastballs 2 feet past the pitch, or 2 feet. I cannot talk. 2 feet past the catcher anyway.
Sometimes, yeah.
But the extra exertion isn't going to be good on those arms, especially that point in the season. If anything, move it back early and then move it up.
Or just keep it consistent, right?
Yeah, it has to.
See, that's my argument.
You can't mess with the size. You can't mess with the dimensions of the field partway through the season because you're changing the rules of the game.
No, you change everything, right? That changes the way you back up first base if you're a pitcher. That changes the way that ground balls are fielded. That changes everything, and it's just absurd.
2 more feet to field a bunt.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't make any sense to me. And if you're going to have to keep it consistent anyway, you might as well keep it 60 feet, 6 inches.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's been that way for a billion years. Just don't mess with it.
Yep.
That's my opinion. But okay, what the other rule that's been proposed to change, it's very similar, is that they're looking at making the bases bigger.
Yes.
They're talking 2 to 3 inches all the way around. What do you think about that?
I think this one kind of makes sense. In the sense that there are just enough bang-bang plays, especially at first base, where you'll get an extra base runner or 2 a game out of this, which would encourage guys running out infield ground balls, which I don't think everybody should, but speed guys for sure run out that infield ground ball, drag bunt more because you have a couple extra inches to get you there, right?
Yeah.
Guys are going to steal more because the distance between the bases is just a little bit shorter, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it would get the game moving a little bit more just because it is such a game of inches. So I'm okay with this in that sense, and it is just enough that you're not going to watch a game and be like, whoa, who put the pillows out?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are concerned about that. That's why I made sure to mention that. It's 2 to 3 inches.
Yeah. It's just, I feel like it's just enough that to make enough of a difference mentally for guys that they're more willing to do those small things to get things moving on the bases.
Well, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with a little bit more.
All right.
From proper baseball hat wearing etiquette to baseball in Cuba to first-hand experiences at ballparks across America, Baseball Together provides you with baseball-themed reading material at your fingertips with an online magazine hosted by Medium.com. As a supplement to our podcast, you can read more about the topics we discuss each week when you read Baseball Together. So, whether you're waiting at the doctor's office, sitting at the bus stop, or just have a couple of extra minutes, you can read in-depth breakdowns about current events in the sport we all love, or enjoy light reading involving the emotional side of baseball that brings us all together. Visit medium.com and search Baseball Together, because sometimes you just want to read about baseball.
We're back. Thank you for sticking with us, baseball family. So we want to finish up talking about some of the things that Rob Manfred wants to implement into baseball. I think the biggest thing lately that we've actually spoken about previously is the safety netting.
Yep.
I think this is so important, and it drives me crazy that he will not take a stand on this and just say, yep, we're going to implement it. It's going to go all the way down to the foul line. We're not going to do it right now just because of infrastructure and things like that with stadiums, but we're definitely going to do it in the off season.
Right.
I feel like he can do that.
Yeah, he could do that.
Right. Instead of saying, well, because he seems like a jellyfish, It's just, waffling. I don't know what we're going to do. Decision. You've got to put that netting up. The White Sox have already done it. I noticed the other day I was watching the Yankee game, and they have their netting all the way down to that dog leg in the wall. And I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And he just needs to say, everybody do it. Everybody's got to do it.
Well, and even down here in the minor leagues, they're starting to do it. The local team here, the Greenville Drive, they've got netting all over the place now. And it's not excessive, but it's definitely appropriate, definitely preventative. And, I don't see any problem with it. I know it is an added expense, and it is, cost is one of those things that everybody gripes about, front offices and stuff like that. But, the fan experience is the most important thing. It's a product, Yeah. And if it's not safe, how can it be entertaining?
Yeah, and if a mom's going to say, I don't want to take my kids to the game because I don't want them to get hit by a foul ball, then you're losing ticket sales.
Yep, that's a legitimate concern.
So speaking of fan experience, so there are some things that I feel like Manfred has done that are not good for the game with fan experience. One of them is the marketing. Like, you've got a guy here that one of my favorite players. I mean, I'm a Mariners fan, but I like so many of the Angels for some reason. I wonder if it's because I'm married to an Angels fan. I love watching Mike Trout.
I do too.
But last year during the All-Star break, he said that he's got to make himself more marketable. And I totally disagree with that.
Yeah.
If you think your players have to make themselves more marketable, then your marketing department is failing. Because this is easily the most marketable guy. You can market a guy when he doesn't talk. Just insert him into commercials. How long have you been there, Mike? I've been here the whole time.
Yep.
And then I think the thing above it all is he's led the league in WAR in how many years? He's the god of war. He's the god of war.
He's the god of war. Yeah, he sure
Buy
is.
the rights to the god of war. Market him as Ares. Whatever you got to do. This guy is the god of war. Market him as such. Right. Throw it out there. Put him out there with the, whatever, the body paint and everything, and his bat. He's the god of war. I feel like Major League Baseball marketing is failing by not taking advantage of small things like that with guys, and just taking advantage of even little personality quirks.
Totally. Well, it's the same with Javi Baez. I mean, he's El Mago for a reason. The dude literally, he's a magician. I've never seen anything like it, and he's the most fun to watch. I think he's more fun to watch than Mike Trout, honestly.
I've never got on YouTube and been like, tag out at second base highlights. Except for with Javi Baez.
Right.
Yeah. That guy, he's so flashy. Last year in the World Baseball Classic, that one where he's pointing down at Yachty as he catches the ball and makes the tag, like, that is so slick and so sweet.
It is sweet.
I've never seen anybody do anything like that. It's awesome.
No, he's the most fun player in the whole league to watch right now, and it's just indisputable. You just can't. It doesn't get better than watching Javi Baez with a glove right now. And even with a bat, I saw a couple of weeks ago, he threw his bat at a bouncer, right? It was a breaking ball that hit the dirt in front of the plate. Javi Baez threw his bat at the ball as it bounced up off of the ground in front of home plate. He connected and made it on base. So it doesn't matter what he does. Right now, he's the most exciting player in baseball.
Especially with a team like the Cubs, you think he'd be easy to market. That is one of the most popular teams in the country. I mean, you've got the Yankees, Red Sox, and Cubs.
Yeah, and the Dodgers.
The Dodgers. Those are the big four. He should be easy to market, but for some reason, I don't feel like they're doing it. No, it doesn't make sense to me, and he shouldn't be ripping on his players in interviews saying, "Oh, he's got to do more." No. That's your job to market these guys. His job is to go out there and play baseball.
It's your brand. You have to leverage the resources you have available, and you have to leverage the narrative and create the narrative. It's your job.
Yeah, truly. So let's talk about a few things that I feel like that can be done. And my thing with pace of play is I don't want the game to speed up too much because I think short games suck. I went to a Mariners-Yankees game a few years ago. The official game time was 2 hours and 1 minute. It was like a 2-1 game.
That's fast.
I feel like we got robbed. We were in and out of there. I mean, we were in and out of there before I knew what had happened.
That's a movie.
Yeah. We had, I think my son was almost 2 at the time, or he just turned 1. He wasn't very old, so he slept for probably 3 innings, which was fine, And sometimes it can get hard with kids. My daughter has autism, and she doesn't love going to games, but if we get her distracted,
totally,
we can get through it. She can work through it, and she can be just fine. But as a fan, I don't like short games. So
me neither.
I don't think they should try to speed things up too much. And I feel like a lot of that pressure is coming from the media, because I know that I've spoken to media members who are like, "You kidding me? My perfect game is 53 consecutive outs and a walk-off home run. Let's go home." Like,
that's
I know
because they're working.
Yeah, I know you're working. You've got to meet deadline, and you're at 81 games a year, or however many your league covers, and it's not as enjoyable covering a game as it is just sitting watching it.
No,
so
absolutely.
I get
that's
that.
Absolutely true. Yeah,
but that's the voice that he's bowing to. He's not bowing to the voice of the fans who just want to go sit and enjoy a game.
Yep.
But if he does, if the commissioner does want to speed things up, the things that I think that can be done is just have batters keep 1 foot in the box. Don't have them walking around in the dirt, adjusting their batting gloves, tying their shoes between every pitch, things like that.
That's a great idea.
Keep a foot in the box, look down at third base, get your sign, dig back in, and get ready to go.
You can even adjust your gloves.
Yeah, you've got time to adjust your gloves while you're waiting.
Sure.
While you're waiting, but you don't have to do the Nomar Garciaparra where you're adjusting each glove 5 times.
Yep.
And then don't have pitchers throw so many pitches between innings. Right now, new pitchers throw 8 pitches, which I understand you're coming into the game from the bullpen. But even then, you've warmed up in the bullpen. Just throw 5.
Yeah.
Throw 5 from the bullpen, and then maybe once you're in between innings, 3 or 4. Because
I like
unless that's like a 10-run inning, you don't need more than 3 or 4. And I feel like this will help guys with their arms too, because they're talking about how there's only so many bullets in the guns, and they're not throwing 100% on those warm-up pitches anyway.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would help with the quote-unquote so many bullets in the gun philosophy.
Sure.
Save some of those bullets and just get the game moving. I know they have the clock in between innings, but just cut that down a little bit by taking some of those pitches away.
I think that's a great suggestion. The other thing I will say is that this mound visit thing, limiting the mound visits, everybody was like really pissed about this, and it's actually turned out to be a non-issue. And
it's true.
Not just a non-issue, but it's actually benefiting the game. So that leads me to believe that it's opened my eyes to see that some of these changes they want to make regarding pace of play might not be as bad as we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
My only thing is that you don't change the integrity of the game. As long as it stays the same game that we've been watching for years and years, I don't mind it. I don't mind limiting the like you said, the pitches. That's perfect. The warm-ups. I don't mind a pitch clock because it only affects them getting set, right? It's just like, don't dink around. So yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting because everybody was up in arms about the mound visit thing, and now it's It's actually a good thing.
Yeah, and I wasn't too concerned about the mound visit thing, just because in every other sport you only have a certain number of timeouts.
Yeah, that's true.
And you can still kind of have code with strategy. I mean, in football they're yelling out stuff all the time, and the other team doesn't generally know what it is. And we used to, in high school, as a catcher, I'd come out and I'd give signals to everybody across the field. We had signals that we would use so everybody knew what was going on. So you don't have to go to the mound to talk strategy and work out what you're going to do. I mean, there's a reason pitchers and catchers have signs.
Yep.
And they can get really complex because you're communicating a lot of information across 60 feet with just fingers. So
fingers and glove swipes and head nods and if you're David Cohn, you don't even do a head nod or a glove swipe or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Stare him down till he changes the sign.
I'm not moving.
I'm
Something
not
else.
moving.
Yep.
Clearly, I don't want to throw that pitch.
Yeah. So I do feel like there's a lot of stuff that the commissioner has proposed to change that doesn't need to be changed. Like you said, it's the integrity of the game. Moving the mound back 2 feet, that would completely change the game. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But small
That's
things like changing the size of the bases, doing little things to pace of play, without doing major overhauls, I feel like are fine. But my biggest thing overall is he's got to make a decision. Well, if he's going to make a change or make a rule change somewhere, he's got to say, this is the way it's going to be. This is how we're going to do it. He can't sit and say, well, we've been kicking this around. Don't bring it to the public until you have something for us.
Yeah.
Is my biggest thing.
Huh, interesting. My biggest thing is stop comparing us to basketball and football.
Different sports.
Right.
Yeah.
They're totally different. Different strategy, different level of athleticism in different ways. It's just different. Baseball is explosive, right? Not that those other sports aren't, but they're on the move a lot in basketball. We get compared to basketball a lot, and those guys are always moving. Baseball is not that way, right?
Right. Yeah.
So stop comparing us to basketball and stop comparing us to football. They're different. And anyway, that I could rant about that, but that's my biggest issue is that the media especially, and I feel like some new fans are picking up on that and they're saying, well, in basketball, right? They move the 3-point line back. I'm like, well, yeah. But now all you get is 3-point shots. That's all you get.
Yeah.
And it's ruined, baseline drives and things like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah, and like just like with basketball, there's going to be certain things that change the game and borderline ruin it, and we don't want that to happen. And that's kind of what the problem is with this whole revolution of the launch angle and hitting over the shift and things like that.
Yeah, it's
like no, we saw a double the other day because a dude bunted against the shift.
Yep,
I'd be okay with a bunt double.
Absolutely,
I'm just fine with that.
Yeah,
and hopefully that will prompt guys to do the same thing and say, no, we just need to keep things simple, keep it the way it is, and we'll be just fine.
So everybody listening, we want to hear your thoughts on these things. We'll put up a post in the VIP group on Facebook. It's the 9+ Us VIPs. You can go there. You can get there by going to the 9+ Us page, searching groups, and then it's the only one available. So you can come in, request to join. We'd love to see you there, and we want your opinion on these things.
Make sure that you like, subscribe, or rate, review, whatever you want to do with the podcast if you like us. And we'll catch you next time.